Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you are. My name is Michael, and I will be the host for today's session. This is a University of Liverpool online live webinar, and I'm really happy today to talk about a very, very important topic, which is the topic of computer science. And we are here today to hear the story of a student who is at the cutting edge and who has gone through one of our computer science programs and has done an amazing job in actually developing a technology that is very current and very, very trendy right now. We're going to talk a bit about that. But before we get into it, just to give you a couple of house rules. Today's webinar, it is a Q&A webinar. So while we're having the conversation with Paul, who is our guest speaker, if you have any questions for us, if you are interested in any of the topics that we're discussing today, please make sure to put all your questions down in the Q&A box, and we'll be sure to give a bit of time towards the end of the webinar to address some of the questions. And if we cannot manage, we'll be sure to have one of our enrollment advisor reach out to you and answer as many of them as possible. So without that out of the way, we will introduce our student for today. His name is Paul Dunne. He is a computer science master student. He's actually waiting to graduate, and he's gone for his dissertation module. And we are delighted to have him today to talk about his experience and his story. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you very much, Michael. Happy to be here.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Very well. I'm sitting here in Zurich, having just arrived late last night, so just settling in now at this stage, and just looking forward to taking part in the webinar.
Brilliant. Can you tell our audience a bit about yourself, about where you are right now in your career, and a bit about the program that you've studied with the University of Liverpool Online? Absolutely.
So I guess my career as a technologist has focused very much on IT infrastructure, so quite a general term, and anybody that works within the infrastructure field knows it can encompass everything from networking to a little bit of development to endpoint device management and everything in between. So really, I came to a stage about 3 years ago where I wanted to pursue a postgraduate degree. And looking at the industry and looking at how things were developing, it seemed that cybersecurity and the whole security sphere was really the place to be, and it held incredible interest for me. So basically, I looked around. I believe we're going to talk a little bit more about this later on, but I looked around and enrolled in the University of Liverpool course in information and computer security. As you mentioned earlier, I've just got my graduation email, so I'll be graduating in July.
Congratulations!
So quite looking forward to that. And yeah, so it's nice to have everything finalized and finally be after a long road, be at the end of it with a master's degree. So quite happy about that.
Brilliant, and really congratulations! It is something, and it's been what, 2.5 years?
I think, yeah, probably from the moment I started researching until the end, it's probably been about 2.5 years. So
quite a journey. Okay, absolutely. So as a computer scientist, computer science professional, you've probably done a lot of shorter courses. My question is, what made you decide to pursue a full master's with the university?
Interesting question. I mean, I think with most people in the technology area will look at, I suppose, vendor-specific certifications, maybe Cisco or Microsoft or VMware or whoever it may be, and I think that gives you a great feel for the technologies of that vendor. But what I was looking for was something that was, I suppose, vendor agnostic, something that was all-encompassing within this security arena. I mean, each vendor has its own particular security certifications, but to really, I feel, get into the weeds and get a holistic view of security as it exists currently, I think a postgraduate degree was really the way that I wanted to go. I felt it would give me a more rounded education.
Brilliant. And you did mention that you did a bit of research before actually enrolling with the University of Liverpool. online programs. Can you tell us a bit about your reasoning and why you managed to end up studying with Liverpool?
Absolutely. I think probably with holding down a full-time position as well as trying to juggle studies, the key for me firstly was flexibility. I needed a course that I could take online, that I could work around my busy day. I mean, most people in technology don't work a 9 to 5 40-day week. 40-hour week. It can be quite difficult to juggle your studies with the demands of a career. So I really needed something that I could do purely online, something that I could log in and out of, and kind of have an asynchronous approach to study. I suppose that was the first reason. The second reason I went with University of Liverpool was in and around the content of the program. I did research a lot of different institutions before I decided on Liverpool. However, the content of the modules, as I was researching them, really piqued my interest. Particularly modules in and around security, in and around cutting edge technologies like, for example, big data, Internet of Things. That kind of area really led me towards University of Liverpool.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing, and I think that it's important for us to, understand each and everyone's personal motivation, and yours are quite pragmatic, and it's really wonderful to hear when all of these things turn out to lead to the University of Liverpool, especially for the computer science programs, because they are so up to date and so cutting edge, and we're really glad to have students like yourself. Now, blockchain technology is quite new. It's been around for maybe at least 5 years or maybe more, but it is still such an unknown kind of technology for a lot of people. Can you give our audience an idea of what is blockchain technology, and maybe a bit of a brief understanding of how it works and how maybe you came to research it?
I will give it a go. I mean, many have tried and failed, but I'll certainly try to give you an overview. I mean, I first encountered blockchain technology as part of the security engineering module in my master's program, and what we were researching at the time was eCash, or cryptocurrency as it's now known. And what we were looking for was the idea of a form of currency that could be decentralized, that removed the big clearing houses, so the financial institutions that normally sit between people who want to send money to people they don't know. So really it was to I guess embrace a trustless environment where that two strangers on the internet could exchange currency without the fear of being ripped off or money being siphoned off somewhere else. So that was the premise of blockchain in the beginning, and it started, of course, with Bitcoin, as most people are probably aware at this stage, and the idea being that, in addition to the trustless properties of blockchain, we also have the idea of transaction immutability, which essentially means that once a transaction is added to a block and that block is added to the chain, that is essentially set in stone. There can be no rollback. That transaction can never be redone or undone, which gives a whole sphere of security to the platform as a whole. So that's blockchain. What I view as the first generation of blockchains. What we're probably seeing now is what I'll loosely refer to as the second generation blockchain, which is blockchains that are not only used for transactions, but can be used to actually develop applications or develop smart contracts which can run within the blockchain itself. So when I was starting to look at my dissertation topics, that this was the area that I kind of focused on heavily, looking specifically within the Ethereum distributed computing environment, and how I might potentially exploit that to manage certain aspects of networks or other technologies.
That's brilliant. And you did mention that you did do your research on this second generation of blockchain technology. So what were some of the findings, and how did you come to these conclusions when you did your research?
I suppose if we work through the slide, it's probably the easiest way to approach it. I mean, the first thing that I became aware of is that the blockchain it is 100% in its infancy at the moment. In the time that I started researching it to the time that I submitted my dissertation, things had evolved immensely. Even while I was developing my prototype for my dissertation, I had to revisit elements time and time again, just because the technology had changed so much from the time that I had maybe written a program initially to the time that I was going to publish the dissertation. So in that respect, I see it as being very similar to the internet, or how the internet was viewed in maybe the early 90s. It was an evolving technology. It was a buzzword. People were, clamoring to get involved in it, but nobody really understood what it could do, or where it would go in the future. Really, the technology hadn't matured. I guess the underlying infrastructure wasn't quite in place yet. And I see a lot of parallels between how the internet was then and how blockchain is now. I think blockchain there's a lot of problems that need to be solved. Things like scalability is a massive problem within blockchain. I think these are areas that are going to be addressed over the next 3 to 5 years. And I think when we move along into that period, maybe 5 years down the line, we'll see blockchain really being embraced in the same way that the internet is embraced today. I think another thing that became apparent was, while I was researching, obviously, blockchain as a means of transferring funds or transferring cryptocurrency, it quickly became apparent that really it had many other uses, that blockchain really could be exploited for many other things. I specifically wrote my dissertation on managing Internet of Things networks using the Ethereum platform. And that's just one of the many applications that blockchain can be used for. I mean, there's companies such as IBM, Accenture. They're building their own blockchain technologies. We've got managed blockchains such as Hyperledger that are out there now. That people are starting to get excited, and people are starting to see all the possibilities that are out there with blockchain. And I think your final point there is that it has the potential to disrupt many different existing business paradigms, and I think we're going to see more and more of this over the next 3 to 5 years.
And I think that you summarize it very well when you compared it to how the industry affected society and economy at a global scale. And it's interesting to understand also that there is another technology coming out now which is in its infancy, and it's an exciting time to actually be a computer scientist, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's if you have an interest in tracking technologies and seeing where they evolve and where they eventually go, I think it's just such an exciting time. I think we have the idea of a truly decentralized platform that can be used for so many different things. It's almost like a framework that we can paint anything on, or a blank canvas that can be designed or painted on in any way we see fit. So yeah, very exciting time.
Exciting times indeed. Okay. Now, you did mention just briefly that you developed the prototype while you were doing your dissertation, and I'm guessing it is part of the requirements going through your computer science program. Can you tell us a bit about more of the specificalities of what the prototype was meant for, and how did you develop it?
Certainly. Well, initially I had the idea that we could use the Ethereum blockchain for a purpose such as building a distributed application. While I was looking for potential uses, the Internet of Things as an idea struck me, that I could potentially marry Ethereum and Internet of Things and create an artifact that would allow me to basically manage an Internet of Things network almost autonomously within a blockchain environment. So what what I did initially was build a private Ethereum chain, and I then built an Internet of Things network, of which all my Internet of Things devices were nodes within that chain. The basic, I suppose, the practical application of it was for me to be able to automatically register and manage the configuration of the nodes that were in the network, and that the network would be completely decentralized and therefore completely resilient. As long as one node on the network was functioning, it meant that I could still deploy configuration updates, I could still register devices. And to me, that was exciting because it removed the requirement for a central platform to manage the network. So at the moment, most large-scale IoT networks are managed on large cloud platforms, say, for example, AWS or Microsoft Azure, which obviously leaves you vulnerable to an outage within that provider, or potentially that provider manipulating your network in some way, shape, or form. So my idea for my artifact was to have something that was completely independent of all that, and could be, as the nature of decentralization, could never be taken down.
Wow, wow, fascinating. And how do you see your prototype being used by, I don't know, other organizations? Do you even see that happening?
Again, an interesting question. I mean, I think some of the things that have occurred to me as I've been doing ongoing research within the Ethereum sphere is that probably what I've developed is now maybe slightly out of date. Ethereum has moved along. There's been improvements to the platform since I wrote my prototype. However, I am still confident that the foundation that I put in place, the basic idea of my prototype, is still going to be useful. I think other developers can look at that, and they may not see it as the framework that I see, but they may see elements of it that could be useful in the future. And I think regardless of the changes that have come about within the Ethereum platform, there's still some benefit from reusing or looking at my platform and hopefully reusing some of the elements.
Oh, I hope that, you get to do that. You did say that it is a hope of yours to have future developers look at these kinds of researches and build upon them, which is it is a nice way of contributing to what's happening right now with the development of this technology.
Absolutely.
A good question that has also wondered for myself is that you didn't come from a programming background, and yet here you are developing and working with such a complex technology. How did you manage to do that? How did you make your way around such a complex landscape?
It wasn't easy. I'll be completely honest. I mean, I had very, very little coding background at all. I mean, I did a little bit of coding when I did my bachelor's, but that was a very long time ago. I think probably one of the main things that gave me the belief that I could create this prototype was probably the variety of modules that I took within or throughout the duration of the master's course. I mean, I touched on technologies that I previously had never touched upon. For example, in the programming the internet module, I touched on some web development, which wasn't really an area that I was incredibly interested in. But through that, I learned a little bit of code. And I felt that I could use that as a building block when I was starting to build my smart contracts within the Ethereum platform. And it was amazing that different elements of the course came into play while I was actually building the artifact. But yeah, I mean, I was slightly fearful when I started building it. I thought to myself, do I have the experience? When I created my risk register for the project, I thought, well, one of the key risks here is I have absolutely no skills in developing in Solidity, which was the language that I used to develop the prototype. But it's amazing, you throw yourself into it and you can build skills that you didn't previously have. And I think that's really key to this whole journey is being able to come out of a program like this and know that you've developed as a person.
That is really, really wonderful to hear. And speaking of skill sets, of course, there's also a practical, understanding of how you can use those skill sets and how you can further your career. And a lot of times, people are a bit skeptical when it comes to computer science because they don't know how they can actually, use those skill sets, develop a career. But I think that you are the perfect example, and this would be also my next question. How did you get to apply these learnings in your current career? And also, was the organization that you currently work for interested in what you were doing with your research?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, throughout the duration of my studies, my organization were very, very supportive. I think they're quite forward thinking. They see security as being a key issue, and we see it today, in the constant array of different attacks that companies are submitted to, whether it's phishing or hacking or whatever. Companies need to be aware that people are trying to access their data and trying to manipulate their systems. And I think I was lucky that my organization is quite forward thinking and sees that and sees where the potential for disruption is in that area. So they were very supportive, and I'm happy to say that when I received news of my my graduation, I was made aware of a position which was not so much infrastructure focused, which was my kind of niche area up until recently. But I've now been offered a more security driven role within my organization. So I would like to think that on the back of my experiences with University of Liverpool, I've managed to develop myself not only personally but also professionally, and I've been able to take that next step within my career as well. So all in all, it's been a really beneficial experience.
That is wonderful to hear, Paul. So just one last question before we try to sum up everything is if you would want to give an advice to anyone who's looking into getting into computer science and taking up a degree, what kind of advice would you give them?
I think probably the number one piece of advice would be don't limit yourself. I mean, I mentioned in developing my prototype, I had a lack of programming knowledge or programming skills. And, I was able to develop that through the program and get to myself where a stage. I'm never going to be a professional developer, but I have more knowledge now than I did maybe back then. And I think don't limit yourself. You're going to develop skills on the program that perhaps you didn't think were possible at the start. But, if you're disciplined and you really want to learn, there's just such an opportunity there. I think in addition to that, particularly with online studies, I think you have to be quite disciplined. There's nobody putting pressure on you to submit your assignments on time or contribute to discussion questions or things like that. So you really have to, if you want to seriously think about working on an online program, is really develop a planner for yourself so that you can utilize your free time. I mean, I found myself as I was studying, maybe in my train journey in the morning, I would take half an hour to read some notes or read a peer-reviewed journal. And it's just about fitting in the study where is good for you. So maybe you have a Sunday where you can, jump in for 5 hours and get your study done, or maybe you're somebody who likes to do it more in increments. But it's about finding that blend and making sure that you're disciplined enough to stick to it. I think that the final thing I maybe would advise upon is getting the support of your organization. If you're somebody that's working full time or indeed part time, it's about making sure that your company knows that you're undertaking this this challenge and making sure that they're willing to support you through it. Also, the support of family and friends is essential as well, I think.
Brilliant. That is so wonderful to hear. Thank you so much, Paul, for sharing all of that.
My pleasure.
We did have the opportunity to have people ask questions before the webinar, and of course, a lot of people going through the questions asked in regards to this big fear that is going on right now, which is, are our jobs going to disappear in the future? And the thing is that I see it personally as an evolution. Technology evolves, but also so do jobs evolve. And I think that with With the computer science portfolio that the University of Liverpool online has, it actually gives you the opportunity to be very, very competitive because of all of the technologies that are out there, because of all of the challenges that are, you know, that the computer landscape is providing. We here at Liverpool try to see it as keeping, you know, up with the trends and staying relevant and staying, you know, at the cutting edge of all of the trends that are happening. So that's why we've also recently launched two revamped programs, which is the Masters in Advanced Computer Science and the Masters in Software Engineering. But of course, we're looking into cybersecurity, into big data analytics, and into information system management. So it's quite a comprehensive portfolio that gives you a very good edge on the market right now if you want to get into computer science as a career. And it is where a lot of things are going to happen. Of course, for people who don't have that much time to spend and maybe so many resources, we do have the shorter postgraduate certificates also in the same 5 fields that I've just mentioned. And if you're still curious about a more in-depth look at these master's programs, at these PG certs, please go and check out our website and get more information, and also talk to an enrollment advisor, and they will be more than happy to give you more information on this. And we do have a short video prepared for you because it's quite an interesting video. It has a humor to it as well, and it is you know, getting you into the world of computer science and especially cybersecurity and how it works. And I'll play it for you within the last few minutes of the webinar, and I hope you enjoy it. Waiting for the video to load. There.
Hey, what have you got for me?
Hi, boss. I think we've got a breach.
Let me take a look. You're right. Good spot.
What should we do?
You keep track of the queries. Looks like they're still probing. I'll shut it down from this end. Sneaky. Someone's been whaling. I'll warn them about this. Tell me what you see.
They're knocking hard. There are thousands of accounts in there.
These guys know what they're doing.
Oh no, they're in.
Oh, they're not. They're out. You'll have to move faster than that to beat this cyber lady.
Good. So there you have it. With this, we have reached the half-hour mark of our webinar. I would like to thank Paul for joining us and, you know, telling his story and telling, you know, his journey with the University of Liverpool Online. Thank you, Paul, for taking the time to do this.
My pleasure.
And for anyone who still wants more information about the computer science portfolio, please, as I mentioned, go and make sure to check out our website. I'll put it up one more time. And if you still have questions, reach out to an enrollment advisor, and they will be more than happy to fill you in on all of the latest developments with the computer science portfolio here at the University of Liverpool Online. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining in. This has been a University of Liverpool Online webinar, and we hope to see you again soon in other online events. And with that in mind, I wish all of you good luck with all of the things that you're pursuing, and I hope to see you soon. Have a great day ahead. Bye.